Well, let me just make sure this is live. Why am I getting feedback? Hope not. Right, good morning all. How are we all doing? Bit hot out there. Here we are. Where are we? 8th of July, 2026. And we're just waiting for them to start. Don't forget, guys, there's going to be apparently some new changes on YouTube soon. Regards pushing the mainstream media before independent people. Wow, what a surprise there, eh? So make sure you're subscribed, guys. You've got the bell notifications on. I try to put out videos during the week between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. So please keep an eye out. And welcome, everyone. Thank you very much. It's much appreciated that you're all here. You're just waiting for them to start. I wonder what the topic will be today. Good to see everyone. I hope everyone's keeping cool out there. We're just waiting for them to start. All right. Oh, damn, I know what I didn't do. So I forgot to click a button. Never mind. It's too late now anyway. Right. Word salad. Yeah, exactly. Bickering worse than kids. Yeah. Primary school again. Toys out the pram. We're just waiting for them to start. As usual, they're late. Next Thursday, just to preempt you. Next Thursday we got Sadiq Khan with yeah, God, I've lost it now. Lord Mayor of London questions. God, oh, sorry. UTK, hello, mate. Good morning. Good to see you and everyone else. Oh, I think the heat's getting to me. All right, here we go. Right, let me shut up and we go over. Thanks all for joining. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Much appreciated.
The case involving Sir Geoffrey Donaldson is not sub judice until sentencing. However, I am granting a limited waiver so that members may discuss wider issues raised in the context of this case. Members should not be or speculate about sentencing issues. Right, let us start with questions from John Slinger.
Question number one, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I take every opportunity to champion Northern Ireland's brilliant manufacturing sector. And let me tell you, whether it's Denroy, Airbus or Thales, or even Holland and Wolff, who have just announced they are bidding for a major UK-Dutch shipbuilding deal, there is a lot to champion.
John Slinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Minister agree that the defence growth deal is a chance for Northern Ireland businesses to access the wider UK defence supply chain? And what efforts is my honourable friend taking to achieve this?
I would certainly agree with my honourable friend. There are many opportunities arising out of the defence growth deal, something I've worked on closely, because of the many businesses across Northern Ireland, small and large, often with dual servicing capability, that I think can take a real opportunity here, and we are supporting them every step of the way.
Jim Allison.
The Northern Ireland Office talks rather glibly about these matters, but the lived reality of the supply chain is very different. A full international customs border now inflicting damage on the import of steel, tightening ICS2 checks, a parcels border, a plants border, £192 million spent on building border posts, and all that to placate an EU to which the Secretary of State and others seem totally beholden. When will the Secretary of State actually stand up for Northern Ireland And can we please not have the usual trite reply that it's all the fault of Brexit, when it's the fault of the very opposite, the denial of Brexit, and that is the altar upon which our supply chains are being sacrificed.
Well, the honourable member, I worry, is in danger of talking down Northern Ireland and its incredible business opportunities. We are here to champion it, and if there are issues arising out of a Brexit that he and others championed, he will understand that we are doing our very best to make sure that those trades flow very smoothly.
Desmond Sway.
Number 2, sir.
Secretary of State.
The Troubles Bill will establish a reformed human rights compliant legacy commission that will carry out investigations and provide answers on behalf of families that have waited too long, enable information sharing by the Irish authorities and provide, in law, safeguards for our veterans.
Desmond.
We were promised a substantial package of amendments and that the bill would return to the House early in the session. Is the delay occasioned by a pause for thought following the personal statement of the Honourable Member for Selly to the House? I certainly hope so.
I would say to the honourable gentleman, he will have noticed that the new Defence Secretary, who himself served in Northern Ireland, said on Monday, and I quote, "This government is absolutely committed to the Troubles Bill," and he will not have to wait too much longer to see the substantial package of amendments to which my right honourable friend addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members are shouting from the opposite benches that people have been waiting 9 months. Well, there are victims who've been waiting decades for this to be resolved. Can I ask the Secretary of State to bring this bill forward as quickly as possible, but also thinking about the victims first, never mind personal statements from anybody in this House, or a very strong military lobby that does not seem to care about innocent victims who've been left behind in Northern Ireland?
Well, my honourable friend makes a very important point about this piece of legislation. As we know, the Legacy Act did not command support across all communities in Northern Ireland. How can you hope to proceed if that is the case? That is why the government is committed to repealing and replacing the Legacy Act. That is what is contained in the bill, and I hope that when people see the full picture, they will realise it's fair, it's balanced, it's proportionate, it's reasonable, and it seeks to command the confidence of all communities in Northern Ireland.
Secretary of State Alex Burkhardt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I mean, if the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill was any of those things, why did the Armed Forces Minister, when he resigned last month, say that it remains unfit for purpose and risks failing the very veterans it claims to protect? Why does the Secretary of State think that the honourable gentleman said what he said?
Well, the honourable gentleman will have to answer that question, but I, with respect, disagree with him. I mean, he worked during his time as a Defence Minister on the package of amendments, and in the end we have to strike a balance, as the honourable gentleman is well aware, and I think that when people see those amendments, they will realise that they are fair and reasonable as regards protection of our veterans, and crucially, they will put in legislation for the first time protections that were not contained in the legislation passed in 2023.
Alex Burkhardt.
I think it's clear from the right honourable gentleman's answer that the Armed Forces Minister quit because he could see that the bill remains unfit for purpose and that it fails to protect the very veterans that it claims to protect. That the Secretary of State must now realise there is no cross-party support in Northern Ireland for his legislation, nor is there support within the Labour Party for his legislation. Will he now accept that this bill should not progress and that we should return to the legislation that the Conservatives brought forward?
I do not accept that, because all of the Northern Ireland political parties were opposed to the immunity that was the heart of the 2023 Legacy Act. Had no support from political parties in Northern Ireland, nor from victims and survivors' organisations. That is why these changes have to be made, and that is why the government is going to proceed with this bill.
Paul Cole, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Back in March, the member for Macclesfield travelled to Belfast to address the Alliance Party conference. In that speech, he warned that it is too easy for the powers that be to write their own rules and cover up. Now, he was talking about the need for a Hillsborough law, which, as he said at the time, is currently stalled in Parliament due to an unacceptably wide carve-out for the security services. These benches are deeply concerned that exactly that issue now confronts veterans who, under this government's draft Troubles Bill, are currently exposed to investigation and prosecution, while the state that gave the orders shelters behind similar such carve-outs. So will the Secretary of State confirm whether or not he will now support the Lib Dem amendment to this bill, requiring any decision to block disclosure on national security grounds be referred to the Intelligence and Security Committee to ensure proper parliamentary scrutiny?
Well, we will come to debate that amendment along with all the others that honourable and right honourable members have submitted when we get to the committee stage. But the judgment in the Thompson case was absolutely clear, and it was also referred to by the Dillon judgment, that the ultimate responsibility for protecting national security rests with the government. That is a long-established principle that has support on both sides of the House. But at the same time, I've made it clear I wish to see the maximum possible disclosure consistent with that requirement that falls upon ministers.
Gavin Robbins.
Mr. Speaker, the Secretary of State will know that, given our legacy of our past, there are two governments involved in this. Was he concerned, as we were, that Sir Declan Morgan to the Northern Ireland Affairs Select Committee 2 weeks ago shared with us his concern that he will not have access to unredacted material, intelligence material from the Irish Government, and that there is nothing within their draft legislation, or indeed the amendments that are due to come before this House, that would change that around? Is he further concerned that the official Chief Operating Officer of the Northern Ireland Office said that day she would take it back, to whom we do not know because she's the Chief Operating Officer, but today she has written to the Northern Ireland Affairs Select Committee and confirmed that nothing within his amendments, or indeed the Irish Government's, would satisfy Sir Declan's requirement for access to unredacted material from the Irish?
Well, I say to the right honourable gentleman that the Irish Government published, as he knows, on the 8th of June, their legislative outline, the general scheme titled The Legacy of the Troubles Bill, and that is intended to fulfil the commitment that the Irish Government gave in the joint framework to cooperate to the fullest extent possible with the Commission. What he is referring to is the position today in the light of the Dillon judgment, and I happen to agree with him now that the Dillon judgment has made it quite clear that the Commission, even in its current form, is compliant with the ECHR and capable of carrying out investigations. I would hope that we would see cooperation in response to the request that it is currently making of the Irish Government.
Gavin Robinson.
Mr. Speaker, I think that is an answer to a question. It's not really the answer to mine. What I would like to hear from our Secretary of State is a full-throated recognition that there is a deficit and that Sir Declan needs access to that unredacted material, and that he will secure agreement from the Irish Government for such a change. But does he recognise, as we stand here today in July, that with no remedial order before the Lords by the end of June, that deadline has passed? With no progress before the Irish assumed the European presidency, which apparently was another deadline that needed to be met, it has passed. With no summit on the 22nd of July, there is no chance that his Troubles Bill will be legislation in 2026.
Well, the right honourable gentleman makes a very powerful argument as to why the Troubles Bill should be passed, because it will enable precisely the information sharing with the Irish authorities that he wants to see, I want to see, and all of the people who are still waiting for answers in Northern Ireland would like to receive, and that is one of the central arguments for proceeding with the bill.
Marcia de Cordova.
Number 3, Mr. Speaker.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I will answer questions 3 and 5 together. I meet regularly with the Northern Ireland Executive and the PSNI to discuss a range of issues in Northern Ireland, including community cohesion. However, given the recent serious disorder, there is a problem here that needs to be tackled.
Marcia de Cordova.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The scenes we witnessed in Belfast last month were truly horrific, and the knife attack was an abhorrent act, and I pay tribute to the courage of those who intervened to help. But, Mr. Speaker, what followed in the days afterwards was equally disturbing. Innocent people were targeted because of the colour of their skin. Families were literally burnt out of their homes and businesses were attacked. So does the Secretary of State agree with me that overt racism and violence has no place on the streets of Belfast or anywhere in our society, and that those in positions of authority and influence should stop inflaming tensions and legitimising racism and prejudice?
Well, I do agree with my honourable friend. The attack on Mr Ogilvie was truly shocking, but there was no justification whatsoever for the racist thuggery that we witnessed on the streets of Belfast in the days following. And I have to say to the House that meeting nurses and doctors from a hospital in Belfast, nurses who described to me that some of them, because of the colour of their skin, were too afraid to leave the hospital at the end of their shift, and others discussed, well, should I leave in the back of a colleague's car covered in a coat or in the boot because we're afraid of the thugs who have taken control of the streets. That should give us all cause for deep concern that it happened on the streets of our United Kingdom in 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank the Secretary of State for that answer? But can I ask, what assessment has he made of the level of online coordination that we saw in the recent unrest in Belfast? And what discussions has he had with the Police Service of Northern Ireland and other security partners in terms of addressing this issue?
Well, I say to my honourable friend that was, of course, an awful feature of what we saw. One of the things I learnt in my discussions was that those from the far right had taken a list of houses in multiple occupation in Belfast that was properly available on the Belfast City Council website. In the interest of openness, they've now taken it down and used that to try and target houses while this racist violence was taking place. There is a clear obligation on the social media companies set out in the Online Safety Act. There is an obligation on Ofcom to enforce that act, because there is no doubt that part of the violence was fuelled by that kind of online hatred.
Andrew Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Secretary of State is plainly taking this very seriously, which is very much to his credit. Now, in the discussions that he and his ministers are reported to have had with the party leaders in Northern Ireland, can he say what points of agreement and dissent there were, and what actions the government, the UK government, undertook to advance in order to try to reduce the possibility of these dreadful scenes that, for many of us who lived through it, are reminiscent of the 1970s in Belfast, do not happen again?
Well, the honourable gentleman raises a really important point, and I'm grateful to him for his question. The fact is, we all have a responsibility, political leaders, for calling out what was witnessed for what it is, and not to mince our words. For social media companies, I've already indicated, to make sure that such material, if it is illegal, is not available on social media sites. I pay tribute to the police, the community organisations. They did an extraordinary job on the 9th of the 10th to find shelter for people who had been burned out of their homes. There's also a responsibility on parents, because if your son comes back at 11 o'clock at night wearing dark clothing, smelling of smoke, a parent might ask, where have you been and what have you been doing?
Community cohesion is very important, both racially and politically. Would the Secretary of State agree with me that while everyone accepts that political leaders and others have to be very cognizant of what they say and also what they do, and whenever we are all remembering our dead as we do, no one denies Republicans the right to remember their dead. But if a political leader like the First Minister of Sinn Féin's Michelle O'Neill not only remembers Republican dead, but lauds, praises and defends their indefensible actions, that does great harm to community cohesion.
Well, Northern Ireland is a society, as the honourable gentleman knows better than most, that has been undergoing a profound change since the signing of the Good Friday Agreement 28 years ago. And there is a legacy, as in the famous lines, we have a shared history, but not necessarily a shared memory. And the progress we have seen is because Northern Ireland society has been working to move beyond that. But one of the people I met who was there on the night of the violence said, we now have another other in Northern Ireland. the honourable member will be familiar with the traditional divisions. There is now another other, which is the ethnic minority population of Northern Ireland, that is terrified about what's happening, and we don't want to add to the travails of the past by not being very clear how unacceptable it is to see that on the streets of Belfast today.
Hannah.
Community cohesion is deeply threatened by the violence and menace on the streets last month, including the deliberate orchestration and including by paramilitary flags and trappings that now fly as bold as brass from lampposts in my constituencies and in many others, and we can no longer pretend the loyalist paramilitaries are not a national security threat. But cohesion is also threatened by a sheer lack of delivery and lack of responsibility taking by the Northern Ireland Executive. The Secretary of State must now also see the role that vetoes and the structures play in that, and in the moment of peril we may now be in Stormont. When will he convene the process for democratic reform of the institutions that a majority of people, of parties and of MLAs have asked for?
Well, my honourable friend is right to raise this issue because now 5 of the main parties have come forward with various proposals for reform, and I've said to the party leaders that I wish to meet them to discuss those proposals. At the moment, time and effort is being expended on trying to sort out the problem of the budgets. On the question of paramilitary displays and flags, the PSNI now has new powers to remove them as a result of the recommendation of Jonathan Hall, the reviewer of terrorism.
Robin Swan.
Mr. Speaker, in his first answer, the Secretary of State said this was a problem that needed to be solved. A fortnight ago in my constituency, I arranged a round table that included the Northern Ireland Housing Executive, the Police, the Executive Office, the Department for the Communities and many other organisations and representative organisations including the Black Diamond Initiative. It was all very apparent, they all had their strategies, they all had their procedures, but what they didn't have was a coordinated response, that they were all looking to the Executive to actually pull all those organisations together. If that dysfunction at the top of our Executive isn't allowing that to happen, what actions will the Secretary of State take?
Well, there is a responsibility above all on the Northern Ireland Executive to deliver for the people of Northern Ireland. So 40% of the time since the Good Friday Agreement, there being no executive in Northern Ireland hasn't helped to achieve that objective. I'll take one issue. There is an acute housing crisis in Northern Ireland, as there is in other parts of the United Kingdom. So taking action to enable more homes to be built, one of the issues that needs to be addressed is the fact that the water infrastructure system can't cope. Sort that out and you can build more homes.
Mike Wood. Shut
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The attempted murder of Stephen Ogilvie in Belfast last month shocked people throughout the country. And the man accused of this horrific attack is thought to have crossed into Northern Ireland illegally from the south. So people from all communities are asking what more can be done to prevent people coming into the UK illegally across this land border. Following the terrible event in Belfast last month, will the government now commit to significantly enhanced operations on the border similar to those already run by the Republic?
Well, we have already increased the number of operations and arrests in Northern Ireland in the last 2 years compared with the previous period. About 1,000 people who have no right to be in Northern Ireland have been removed, including 500 who have been returned to the Republic of Ireland. The honourable member will be well aware of the importance of the open border, so it is intelligence-led policing at the ports, the airports, Operation Gull, and visits to workplaces that has resulted in more people being detained and removed.
Mr. Speaker.
My honourable friend is a powerful campaigner on this issue. The Secretary of State and I recognise the importance of fishing industries across the United Kingdom. He visited Kilkeel earlier this year with Minister Muir, where this was raised. Immigration changes are designed to ensure our domestic workforce has access to good jobs, and the Secretary of State has written to the Home Secretary about this issue.
Alison Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his response. But unfortunately, jobs at Whitby Seafood, the country's largest scampi supplier to caterers, remain at risk. And that's because, as the Minister knows, around 70% of crews who operate out of Kilkeel who catch the nephrops or scampi are foreign workers who will no longer qualify under the new visa rules from the end of this year. And while efforts to hire more domestic workers are underway, a small number of bespoke seasonal visas could save the scampi industry. And will my honourable friend redouble his efforts to work with colleagues to secure a solution and protect these jobs in Northern Ireland and Whitby?
We have written, as I say, to the Home Secretary to set out these issues with her, and I'm sure my honourable friend will be making her case very powerfully as well. Can I also just say it is our duty to work with businesses across the UK to ensure that they are ready for these changes. We want our fishing industry to thrive and people here to benefit from those good jobs.
Jim Shannon.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Minister very much for his answer? The severe financial impact that the restricted skilled worker visas are having on family-owned trawlers in Portavogie, Ardclass and Kilkeel face a perfect storm. Fuel costs, newly imposed Isle of Man transit barriers. The Minister knows the issue. I met the Immigration Minister, the Honourable Lady met the Immigration Minister as well. There is a proposal that could be acceptable. Will the Minister add his support to that to ensure that the historic fleet in Portavogie, Ardglass and Kilkeel is permanently in a position to fish the seas round the coast of Northern Ireland and to ensure that our fishing sector has a secure and future? And we ask that very much.
Well, we support our fishing sector totally, as he will know. I'd be very interested to hear more about the proposals, and if the Minister is speaking with the honourable gentleman and my honourable friend, I will of course be trying to be part of those meetings to hear what I can hear.
Samuel Wilson.
Question number 6, Mr. Speaker.
Stay.
I meet regularly with the logistics sector and businesses trading between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, including through the Northern Ireland Business Stakeholders Group, to discuss how we can make the Windsor framework operate as smoothly as possible.
Yes, the Minister will be well aware of the importance of the industry in Northern Ireland and also the burdens which it is falling under at present because of the Brexit arrangements, which have pushed up costs, led to delays and also meant that many containers are coming back empty from GB, on top of which we now have a carbon tax on ferries coming to Northern Ireland and from Northern Ireland, adding the costs. Does he recognise that the logistics industry is important to Northern Ireland? It's being strangled by the arrangements with the EU and by the net zero policies, and what steps does he intend to take to address those issues?
Yeah. Well, I would say to the honourable gentleman on the ETS, yes, we are applying a carbon charge to boat movements between GB and Northern Ireland, the same that is being applied between GB and the Republic of Ireland. But the reason for that is to ensure that the carbon border adjustment mechanism does not hit businesses in Northern Ireland, which he would be very cross about if that were to be the case. I would simply say to him, if things are as bad as he describes, why is Northern Ireland one of the fastest growing parts of the United Kingdom economy?
Question 7, please, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I will answer questions 7 and 11 together. I meet the leaders of the main Northern Ireland political parties on Thursday, the 11th of June, to discuss the terrible disorder. The attack on Mr. Ogilvie was truly shocking, but the racist violence we saw in response had no justification whatsoever.
Ready.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Roma have suffered centuries of prejudice and hate under the Nazis, who were subject to concentration camps and genocide. Roma people have made their home in my constituency and in Northern Ireland and should be treated with decency. Yeah. Yet they have been subject to terrible racist violence in Northern Ireland. What steps is my right honourable friend taking with the Northern Ireland Executive to safeguard the Roma community in Northern Ireland?
Yeah. I think the single most important thing that we can all do as political leaders is to be absolutely clear that everyone who has made the United Kingdom their home lawfully should be treated with the characteristics of our country.
Janet Davey.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can't begin to imagine what the victims of the recent disorder felt and experienced, and the devastation that had brought upon their communities. My Labour values are about respect for others, about treating people fairly and justly. This act was none of them. Can my right honourable friend please say what is being done to rebuild, to restore these communities in every aspect, from their trauma to their protection and to their loss of possessions as well?
Well, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for what she says, and I agree with her. If one takes the example of Ballymena, there was terrible disorder there last year, as a result of which a number of steps were taken to bring the community together. And it was noticeable that in the recent disorder we saw in Belfast, it was not replicated in Ballymena. Now, that is an example of communities working together to build that trust and respect. We need to see a lot more of it.
Colin Lockhart.
Speaker, does the Secretary of State accept that while there can never be any excuse for criminal disorder, there is equally no excuse for a border policy that leaves Northern Ireland exposed? How many more incidents will it take before he and this government actually deal with the open border with the Republic of Ireland, which is being exploited daily? And when will this government put in place measures to protect our citizens from illegal immigrants?
The honourable lady, I hope, will recognise that the common travel area, which is more than a century old, is of great benefit to the citizens of the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. Many people in Northern Ireland live their lives across that border every single day. And anyone who would suggest, and I know that she isn't, that somehow there should be immigration controls on that border is not being realistic, and it would not be the appropriate action to take. What we are doing, as I indicated in answer to an earlier question, is increasing immigration enforcement activity across the United Kingdom, including in Northern Ireland, as a result of which 1,000 people have been removed in the 2 years since the election, including 500 returned to the Republic of Ireland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Secretary of State join me in commending the officers of the PSNI who have responded to recent disorder with professionalism and integrity? Does he agree with me that they deserve the very best support, including a modern, high-quality training facility? And can he give this House an update when that is going to be funded?
Well, I join the honourable gentleman in his thanks and praise to the brave officers of the PSNI. My honourable friend and I visited the police officers at Strandtown Police who dealt with the disorder when the bus was set on fire on the 10th of June, and over 40 of them were injured, and we wish them a speedy recovery. I know that the honourable member is a doughty advocate for the new training centre, and I look forward to discussing the matter further with him.
Happy birthday to the Leader of the House. We now come to the Deputy Prime Minister's questions, and we start with Paul Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 1, sir.
Deputy Prime
Minister. Mr. Speaker, I've been asked to reply on behalf of the Prime Minister, who's attending the NATO summit. Working with our allies, we're strengthening Europe's role in the alliance that remains the cornerstone of our national security. Yesterday, the Prime Minister met with the Prime Minister of Norway, and I'm sure this House will join me in wishing good luck to the England team ahead of the World Cup quarter-finals. Mr. Speaker, this week we mark the awful anniversary of 7/7, a day when people travelling through London on a bright summer morning had their lives ended and changed forever, including my best friend, James Adams. We remember all those affected by those terrible attacks, and we will always stand against terrorism. And, Mr. Speaker, the Labour Party also pays tribute to Sir George Howarth. He was a champion for Knowsley, a distinguished colleague, and a wonderful, wonderful gentleman. We'll miss him deeply, and our condolences are with his wife, Julie, and his family. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Paul Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I entirely associate myself with the Deputy Prime Minister's opening and personal remarks? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Right Honourable Gentleman from Makerfield are both proud football fans. So given that the Deputy Prime Minister clearly thinks the Prime Minister has always been match fit, how does he feel that his own MPs are given the boss the red card and brought on a left winger to get them out of the relegation zone?
That's not bad for someone who represents the Premier League side. But 2 years since the election, the honourable member still needs to engage with the facts of the Tories' failed period in government. As his colleagues now accept this, the former Treasury Minister, the former Community Secretary, the former Health Minister, the former Immigration Minister, and that's just the member for Newark, who wrecked the country, helped wreck the Tory party, and now wants to do it all over again with reform.
Jeff Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 3 weeks' time, Greater Manchester residents will have the chance to vote for Labour's brilliant candidate, Bev Craig, to be I've worked with Bev for many years, so I know her strong record as a leader and what an outstanding mayor she'll be. Will the Deputy Prime Minister join me in welcoming Bev's pledge to extend free travel on public transport to all 11 to 18-year-olds? So all our young people in Greater Manchester can have the independence to travel to the work, education and leisure opportunities they deserve.
Well, I agree with my honourable friend. Bev Craig will be a brilliant mayor for Greater Manchester. I'm proud that Labour is putting power over bus services back in the hands of local leaders. This government has extended franchising powers, capped fares, invested to deliver better services, and we're ensuring children can enjoy free bus travel this summer. I'm sure colleagues will want to get behind Bev in Greater Manchester so that we can defeat Reform's divisive candidate and drive the agenda forward under a new mayor.
Shadow Secretary of State, Sir James Cleverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to echo the Right Honourable Gentleman's tribute to Sir George Howarth and pass on my party's condolences to his friends, family and loved ones. I also wish to echo his support and encouragement to the England football team in their forthcoming match against Norway. And, of course, I will echo his words about those people murdered on 7/7, their friends, their families, but also pay tribute to the emergency services that did so much on that day. Will he apologise to the victims of the rapists, sexual predators and paedophiles that he is planning to release early?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to welcome the Shadow Housing Secretary to the dispatch box. He, of course, could have been doing this job every week if he were better with numbers. He's the Foreign Secretary. He was the Foreign Secretary in government that botched Brexit, the Home Secretary in a government that decimated neighbourhood policing, and one of the shortest-serving education secretaries in our history. Now, he asks about a very serious issue, and every decision we have taken has been based on public safety and delivering justice for victims. Let's talk about the context. The last Labour government built 28,000 prison places. We're building 14,000 by 2031. We've already delivered 3,200. Under the Tories, they closed 23 prisons. 23. Gloucester closed. Shrewsbury closed. Portsmouth closed. Holloway closed. Northallerton closed. And what are they now? A block of flats. That's why we have to have an early release scheme. That's why we passed the Sentencing Act. And we're putting community powers locally to make sure that we protect the public.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, he makes a joke about the use of figures. Let me give him a figure. 50,000 prisoners released early in just 2 years on his watch. And I am genuinely shocked. Mr. Speaker, that when given the opportunity to apologise to victims, he very publicly failed to do so. And let me remind him what this is about. Let me quote Fiona Goddard, herself a victim of grooming gangs, who's been brave and open about how his policy will impact her. And she says, "Finding out that they may be released early has completely set me back. I have barely left the house. I feel constantly anxious, frightened and unsafe. I can barely sleep." This is the impact his policy is having on victims. He refuses to apologise. But why is he pursuing a policy which he must know is both wrong and dangerous?
This is a very serious issue, and the honourable gentleman is experienced in this House. He knows that while he was Home Secretary, they had an early release scheme that set out 10,000 offenders, 10,000 under his... They had 6 schemes within a year. They had a scheme that they announced on the 6th of June 2023, another scheme on the 17th of October 2023, another scheme on the 8th of March 2024, another in April, another in May, another in June, all before the election. And that's why Rishi Sunak, it's rumoured, called the election in the first place. They left a system with just 83 empty cells. That's what the Justice Secretary previous to me inherited when she came into office. That's why we had to pass the sentencing scheme. He hasn't said what they would do now to fix the system. Of course we think of every victim. And that's why we're notifying victims in discussion with all victims. I sat last week in my surgery with a victim of grooming gangs. All of us want to see offenders locked up. That's why we've got to have prison capacity.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about 10,000 early release over 14 years of Conservative government. They have released 50,000 in 2 years. And he knows it's wrong. He is a good man. He must know that it is wrong to release 5,000 serious criminals, including rapists, including paedophiles. And not only does he know it's wrong, but his party knows it's wrong. 400 Labour MPs and not one voted to support the government's policy in the vote last night. They know it's wrong. The country knows it's wrong, but he insists on pursuing it anyway. So if he will not change course, will he at least make this guarantee that not one rapist or paedophile will be released early later on this year?
He hasn't proposed what they would do if they were in office. They released 10,000 with 4 different schemes, no impact assessment when they released them, no victim contact when they released them, no warning. They did it on the sly. And let us be clear, yes, we've got more probation officers. They, of course, cut probation, decimated it because of Chris Grayling. We've invested £700 million in probation. We're rolling out the largest programme of tagging in our history. We're forcing offenders to stay boxed in certain areas rather than where victims are. We're creating alcohol, pub, football and driving bans. We're implementing income reduction orders. And we're expanding chemical castration for sex offenders. None of it happened when they were in power.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, he will look back on this exchange and I think he will be shocked by how this is coming across. No apology to the victims, no guarantee that paedophiles and rapists will not be released early. We all know that releasing dangerous criminals on purpose is the wrong thing, but not content with doing that, he is hell-bent on releasing dangerous criminals by accident. Yep. Last year, in response to the questions of my right honourable friend, the member for South Suffolk, he claimed that under Labour he had got a grip of accidental releases. Yet we now know there have been more accidental releases in the last 2 years than in the entirety of the last Parliament. So I give him another chance. Will he apologise to the country for his abject failure at keeping prisoners in prison where they belong.
I've got to say, this is rich coming from the honourable gentleman. Exactly. They had 14 long years in power. They wrecked neighbourhood policing. He was Home Secretary. Prisons were at bursting point. That's why they called the general election. And they let out offenders in secret. And that is why we have the Sentencing Act that passed through this House and the House of Lords. What we're doing is we are getting thousands more bobbies on the beat. We're toughening up probation. They decimated it. And we have to have the space to knock up dangerous criminals. That's why we passed the sentencing bill.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, it's the dangerous criminals that he is letting out early. So he refuses to apologise to victims. He refuses to guarantee that sexual offenders and rapists will not be released early. Another thing that the country and indeed this House knows instinctively is wrong is his personal crusade to scrap trial by jury. We know that it will not clear the backlog. We know that it undermines fundamental British freedoms, and we know the legal profession is united against it. So will he now admit that it is wrong, and will he commit to reverse his proposals to scrap trial by jury?
Well, let's be clear, Mr. Speaker. There is no proposal before this House to scrap trial by jury. The honourable member needs to do better and get on the detail. There is a threshold change. There is a threshold change. Margaret Thatcher made a change to jury trials. David Cameron made a change to jury trials. The vast majority of criminal cases in this country are dealt with by magistrates, again, which they cut. We're restoring the magistrate, and they can do more. We're investing in our courts. They ran our courts down. We're modernising our courts. We're introducing digital ID, and we need reform.
Sir James Cleverly.
Mr. Speaker, he talks in glowing terms about what he's claiming to do. What we are actually seeing this government doing is stripping money from where it's needed and squandering it on the welfare bill, which has ballooned by £20 billion this year alone. And he talks about getting over the detail. Here's a simple detail for him. When I was Home Secretary, we had more police officers than at any point in British history. Since taking over, that number has dropped by over 2,000 officers. Mr. Speaker, at the dispatch box last week, my right honourable friend, the Leader of the Opposition, highlighted this government's failure to defend us internationally. Today, I have outlined his failure to defend us domestically. If the soon-to-be Prime Minister... Is he in the room anywhere? No. If the soon-to-be Prime Minister does not want to be complicit in his failure, he should come out and condemn this plan, not just hint that he opposes it. Because if Labour cannot protect the citizens of this country, either domestically or internationally, then what on earth is the point of them?
Mr. Speaker, he insists on proving that he can't count. We lost 16,000 police officers when they were in power. Mr. Speaker, the British people haven't forgotten what the party opposite did to our country. After 2 years of a Labour government, I'll compare our record every day of the week. Their record is the biggest fall in living standards in recorded history. Our record is the biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation. Their record is wrecking our criminal justice system. Our record is bringing down violent crime. Their record is millions of people stuck on NHS waiting lists. Our record is cutting NHS waiting lists, the fastest rate in history. Their record is cutting defence. He was a reservist. They hollowed out the armed forces. Our record is the biggest boost to defence spending since the early 1990s. And their record is plunging hundreds of thousands of children into poverty. Our record is lifting 500,000 of children out of poverty. I'll take our record over theirs any day of the week.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Family C official report about the most depraved sexual abuse of children identifies serious failures by Glasgow City Council and other bodies. The report, Mr. Speaker, says one child victim banged on the windows, shouting at a health visitor not to leave. This was treated as streetwise and not a desperate cry for help. Staff described the same child with contempt, saying the child's behaviour was nasty and interfering. The children desperately needed compassion, love and safety, not contempt. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that the Council must accept robust, independent scrutiny of what has happened and independent scrutiny of the implementation of improvements?
Well, Mr. Speaker, this case involves horrific offences against vulnerable children. I know all members of this House will join me in paying tribute to the victims who've shown remarkable bravery in coming forwards. It's evident that these children were dreadfully failed, and Glasgow City Council must urgently act on the recommendations of this review. I know my honourable friend has written to the Scottish Government to request an independent inquiry. The SNP should consider this request with the gravity that it deserves.
Daisy Cooper, Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I associate myself and my party with the Deputy Prime Minister's tribute to Sir George Howarth, his remarks about the 7/7 bombings and all those who live with the consequences of that terrible day, and wish England good luck for Saturday evening. And as the UK braces for its 7th Prime Minister in a decade, can I also thank the Deputy Prime Minister for our exchanges and wish him well in whatever role he may have. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member for Clacton used to say... Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member for Clacton used to say, leave means leave. But it seems his latest stunt is to leave this place just so that he can return as a fully fledged member after not just one referendum on his behaviour, Mr. Speaker, but possibly 2. So will the Deputy Prime Minister join us in urging the Chancellor to delay the Honourable Member for Clacton's resignation until the investigation is complete, so the good people of Clacton have all the facts before they cast their votes? And failing that, will he support our Clacton clause, so that even once the Honourable Member ceases to be an MP, the investigations can continue?
Well, everyone can see that the Reform leader is just trying to distract from the fact that he's up to his neck in sleaze. He's got serious questions to answer and he can't run away from them. Labour isn't going to be part of this circus. I hear it's the people versus the establishment, the city trader, Putin admiring professional politician who's pals with crypto billionaires versus Count Binface. There have been unqualified joke candidates in the past. Let's see what the people of Clacton decide.
Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's clear it's a 2-horse race. Mr. Speaker, on a more serious and very sombre note. On a sombre note, Mr. Speaker, on a sombre note, MI5 has defended in court an agent that they knew to be openly misogynistic, obsessed with violence, and who used his position to coercively control his girlfriend Beth and attack her with a machete. To add insult to injury, MI5 also gave false evidence to the court. So will the Deputy Prime Minister use this opportunity to offer Beth a full apology on behalf of the government? And will he use his position to bring back a full Hillsborough bill next week which covers the security services so that we can pass the law before the summer recess?
Well, she raises a very serious issue, of course, and I will arrange for Beth to meet with the Security Minister to discuss this in detail. She also raises the Hillsborough Bill, and I'm confident that this will be before the House in the coming days.
Emily Darwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Deputy Prime Minister and most of us across this House have been victims of AI-generated fake news, aka deepfakes. These mislead the public and they disrupt our democracy. BBC News coverage and coverage from other news channels is also being AI manipulated to tell untruths. Will he, alongside MPs from across this House, support the amendments I've tabled to the Representation of Peoples Act, which would force anything that is AI created to be labelled as such and stop the production of deepfakes of ourselves and colleagues, and stop the UK from these destructive tactics used by foreign states and others who wish to see our democracy made weaker?
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. She's right that our protections must keep pace with evolving threats, including deepfakes. I know she's been in close discussions with ministers on this issue, and we will look at her amendment closely. We're absolutely focused on protecting our democracy against foreign interference.
Dr. Ellie Chant.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our politics needs fixing fast. The broken, outdated first-past-the-post system has clearly failed to deliver stable government. We urgently need to rebuild trust in our democracy and ensure that everybody's vote counts equally. So does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with the Right Honourable Member for Makerfield that proportional representation is an idea whose time has come? And does he agree with me and members across this House that time is now, before the next general election?
Well, I'm very pleased that she raises the issue of votes and democracies. But I've got to say this to the Greens. During the local elections, a Green councillor in Lewisham described me and the Shadow Foreign Secretary as coconuts. Her party looked the other way, kept her candidate in post, and have rewarded that candidate with a council job. I'm not making this up, the Cabinet Member for Healing. The Greens could start a healing process by stopping such racist language.
Douglas McAllister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week marks the second anniversary of our Labour government, and two years on, my Western Bartonshire constituents now enjoy greater rights at work. Thousands of workers are now better off thanks to increases in national minimum wage. Thousands of children lifted out of poverty. Tens of millions of pounds in Pride in Place funding to communities previously left behind. Shipbuilding on the Clyde secured with the Norwegian naval deal. Billions of pounds investment in Fastlane. As well as a new youth hub set to open next month.
I think even the Woman's sitting down, it's not me. I think the Deputy Prime Minister could even answer that because he wants to answer.
Well, can I commend my honourable friend for the difference that he's made, including his hard work to bring Pride of Place funding to his constituency. He lists an amazing record in 2 years, and we've got 3 more to go, Mr. Speaker.
James Murdoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Understandably, over the past week, rules and regulations have come under sharp focus. But even more important than the rules and regulation is the law. And on that topic, I believe there are a number of things where everyone in the House can agree and everyone in the House can feel proud. Phrases such as without fear and favour, and symbols such as Lady Justice wearing a blindfold. Now, I'd like to ask the Deputy Prime Minister, however well-meaning actions from the MPCC and the College of Policing with their programmes such as the Race Action Plan may be, we have seen some very high-profile cases where civil unrest has where faith in police has been shaken by what appears to be two-tier decision-making. So may I ask in good faith what the Deputy Prime Minister can do to reassure people that without fear and favour will always be maintained?
Well, can I say to the honourable gentleman, everyone is equal before the law. That is the foundation on which openness, tolerance and generosity of this country is rested. And let's be clear, there is no two-tier justice in this country. And can I say, the honourable member was elected as a Reform Member of Parliament, and he clearly aspires to become one once more. Given reports that concerns were raised with the National Crime Agency about Nigel Farag's £5 million gift, he should be asking, where did the money really come from?
No law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm deeply grateful for what the Prime Minister has helped us deliver in Cornwall the past couple of years, whether that's free breakfast clubs, urgent capital funding for GP surgeries, or the Kerno Industrial Growth Fund. However, what's held us back at various points, not beside the chuntering from the other side, I would argue completely unnecessarily, is something to which the answer is patently obvious to all in Cornwall: the question of who should be the masters of Cornwall's strategic destiny. Does he agree with me that the answer to this question must always be Cornwall? And will he make time for the government to lay the statutory instrument required to make Cornwall once and for all a strategic authority, so that when the Right Honourable Member for Makerfield comes in, that we can ensure that good growth in every postcode and reindustrialisation of Cornwall?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend? He's right to champion the huge potential of Cornwall. We're absolutely committed to devolution and putting power in the hands of local leaders. Conversations with local authorities, including Cornwall, are ongoing, and we will confirm next steps as soon as possible. I know ministers will be happy to update him.
Dr. Ros Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituency of the South Cotswolds is the 9th most sewage-polluted constituency in the entire country, with thousands of hours of sewage pouring into the Thames, Avon and Colne. But that metric of hours conceals the truth. It doesn't convey the actual volume, and clearly a trickle is very different from a gush. So will the Deputy Prime Minister arrange for me to meet with the relevant minister to require water companies to report on the volume and concentration of sewage discharges, as well as the number of hours?
Well, she's right. We inherited record levels of pollution. We're determined to tackle this and clean our waterways. We've acted by banning unfair bonuses, introducing jail time for law-breaking bosses, unlocking $104 billion of private investment to rebuild vital infrastructure to deliver cleaner waters, and of course we've got the Clean Water Bill. Of course I'll arrange for her to meet with the Minister.
Cat Ettles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Stourbridge is famous for many things: the glass industry, Jude Bellingham, Robert Plant, and most importantly, the Stourbridge Shuttle, the UK's shortest railway line at just 0.8 miles, or 1.3 kilometres if you prefer metric, and it links Stourbridge Junction with Stourbridge Town. Despite its small size, it achieves an impressive 99.6% reliability compared to the West Midlands average of 64.4%. And one of my highlights as an MP was unveiling a shuttle car named after local legend George the Stourbridge Station Cat, whose global social media following made him a beloved fixture at the junction. And today marks the start of Shuttle Shorts, a short film festival celebrating the journey. The shuttle shows how community railway can improve local mobility. Does he agree that the pre-metro ambition to introduce the VLR service between Stourbridge and Brierley Hill is a valuable opportunity for GBR, and local businesses should be supported to do this?
First, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a statement about the future. It is coming home. And can I thank my honourable friend? I absolutely echo her sentiments on Jude Bellingham. He's not only making Stourbridge proud, but he's a source of pride for the whole nation. Great British Railways is in the biggest overhaul we're seeing of our railways in a generation. We'll work with all partners, including local authorities and local business, to drive investment, support economic growth and deliver better service for her constituents.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Constituents in the west side of North Shropshire were delighted when RIS 3 was announced, because as part of the National Safety Programme, a roundabout at the desperately dangerous Hlunkers Crossroads became a step closer. But with the announcement that the Defence Investment Programme will be funded by cuts to transport programmes, can the Deputy Prime Minister reassure my constituents that the National Safety Programme won't be cut? And can he consider using the Liberal Democrat idea of defence bonds to fund the Defence Investment Plan so that critical security projects like transport are not put at risk through the programme?
We are raising defence spending to keep this country safe in an increasingly volatile world. That does require tough decisions, and the Department of Transport will set out £700 million worth of savings for roads funding, but we will consult on the next road investment strategy and set our decisions in due course. I can reassure the Honourable Lady that safety of passengers would always come first.
Pam Cox.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Ruth Ellis was the last woman to be executed in this country. Her case serves as a haunting reminder of a time when our justice system ignored the realities of domestic abuse and coercive control. In the decades since, members of Ruth's family and supporters have campaigned unwaveringly for her to receive a posthumous pardon. Will the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me that their courageous campaign and the terrible lessons of Ruth's case must strengthen the government's resolve to free women from devastating cycles of abuse?
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. I have the honour to say that His Majesty the King has accepted our advice to grant Ruth Ellis a conditional pardon, the last woman to be hanged in the United Kingdom. While the pardon does not claim she was innocent of killing David Blakely, it replaces the death penalty with a sentence of life imprisonment to recognise a profound injustice in this exceptional case. I know her grandchildren, Laura Enston, Stephen Beard, are in the gallery with us today. We hope this brings a measure of peace to Ruth Ellis' family, who have carried the weight of what happened to her for over 70 years.
Gregory Camp.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Government have said that higher taxes are needed to fund rising welfare spending. In Northern Ireland, my party's Communities Minister is taking action to reduce welfare fraud and error. Previous discussions were held between Treasury and the Department that would have allowed Northern Ireland departments to retain a share of any savings to invest directly in public services, but those proposals were blocked by Sinn Féin. Would the Deputy Prime Minister ensure that the incoming Prime Minister will look at that approach again so that we can tackle benefit fraud, protect taxpayers' money, as well as delivering real benefits for communities across all of Northern Ireland?
Well, I know that my honourable friend, the Minister for Northern Ireland, is discussing the budget at this very time, but tackling fraud and error in the welfare system is a priority for this government. That's why we passed the Fraud, Error and Recovery Act, giving the DWP more powers to stop fraud in its tracks, recover money lost and prevent overpayments.
Murphy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Yesterday I was proud to host a number of Basingstoke's Nepalese community here in Parliament, including a number of Gurkha veterans. One of the issues we discussed was that of Gurkha pensions, and I pay tribute to the work of my honourable friend from Aldershot for all of her work on this issue. I've been proud to work alongside her. Does the Deputy Prime Minister agree that it is time to resolve the long-standing issue of Gurkha pensions, recognising the service and sacrifice of Gurkha veterans to our country?
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. We owe a profound debt of gratitude to the Gurkhas, who have served this country courageously. We're listening to the needs of the community, and we're already improving access to healthcare and community support. Ministers have met with veterans and the government of Nepal for constructive discussions on pensions. Those will continue, and I'd be happy to ensure that my honourable friend is kept updated.
Rebecca Paul.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Coughlin's Bakery, which was founded in 1937, has announced the closure of all of its stores, 5 of which are in my Reigate constituency. The reasons given by Sean Coughlin include recent employer national insurance and business rate hikes. This much-loved family business that has survived a world war and multiple recessions hasn't been able to survive this Labour government. So I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, how many businesses need to go under before this government learns that it can't tax its way to growth?
We're backing business with the lowest corporation tax in the G7. We've delivered the small business plan with the largest crackdown on late payments in 25 years. We're bringing down costs of business through 5 major trade deals. We've secured $365 billion in private investments since the election, and unemployment down over 400,000 more people in work than this time last year.
Final question for Session Lobby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last month I had the opportunity to host the South Bank Centre in my constituency, one of the many that I'm proud to have across Vauxhall and Campbell Green, for their 75th anniversary. The House may know that the South Bank Centre was built as part of the Festival of Britain 1951, which successfully saw people come together to share the identity after the ruins of the World War II. 75 years on, Mr. Speaker, sadly the world is a more divided place. Recently, we've seen 2 far-right marches, including one going through my constituency, leaving many members feeling afraid. But, Mr. Speaker, there is hope, as we see with the World Cup bringing people together, showing the power of culture and sport. So does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me? Now's the moment to continue to invest in the things that bring us together, just as the government did in 1951.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for the tireless work that she does in this area. She's absolutely right. We must stand united against those who seek to divide us. Our Social Cohesion Action Plan sets out how we will tackle extremism, bring communities together and restore national pride, and we're providing local communities with up to £1.7 million to insulate them against the threats to social cohesion.
Right, that completes Deputy Prime Minister's questions. Let from bench change over.
Okay, right. Thank you everyone for watching today. Much appreciated. We will carry on for a little while in a bit. There's a QR code if you're not subscribed. So I'm going to carry on for a little while. I don't know how long because the heat is getting a bit long, but we will carry on and see what they say. If it's nothing, if it's anything interesting, I'll keep it going. But if not, then we'll be off. But thank you very much, everyone, for watching so far. Much appreciated. Hit the like on the way out. Stick around if you want. Much appreciated. Exactly.
Sir Roger Gale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could the Minister tell the House what measures the government has put in place to ensure that in the coming holiday season, travellers and business freight are not delayed at our ports, our international railway stations, and our airports as a result of the imposition of the European exit and entry system?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the right honourable gentleman for his important question. The EU entry-exit system is an EU scheme, and its implementation is the responsibility of the European Commission and participating member states. This government has been working closely with the EU, with member states and with industry to understand the impacts, particularly for the juxtaposed border controls at the Port of Dover, at Eurotunnel and St Pancras, and to advocate for the pragmatic use of the flexibilities available within the legislation to minimise disruption for UK citizens. The government has supported all 3 juxtaposed ports to ensure that they have the right technology and processes in place to make sure EES registration runs as smoothly as possible, and this has included providing £3.5 million worth of funding to each of those ports to help them make changes to their infrastructure and purchase the equipment they need to be ready their sites for EES. It is not unusual to see queues at the Kent juxtaposed ports during peak times due to the unique geography, and this has been the case prior to EES. However, we want to minimise the impact of EES. At the late May bank holiday weekend, both ministers and officials engaged French authorities to ensure arrangements were in place to handle large volumes of traffic. This resulted in assurances from France that they would have adequate staffing levels and clear escalation plans in case of severe disruption. These arrangements were made use of on the 23rd of May when the French police aux frontières employed flexibilities available within the regulations to alleviate congestion on the road network. I, my officials and ministerial colleagues across government are actively engaging with France and the EU to make similar arrangements ahead of the summer period. The Department for Transport continues to support the Kent and Medway Resilience Forum, who have tried and tested plans in place to manage disruption to the road network in Kent. For passengers travelling to Schengen countries by air, EES registration will take place in their destination. It will not take place in UK airports, and queues in EU member states are for those states to manage. However, this government continues to engage with the Commission and relevant member states to advocate for the pragmatic use of EES flexibilities allowed to avoid delays for passengers. We are also engaging our European partners on the use of technology to move elements of registration away from the border, such as the EES app. And we continue to encourage travellers to check with their travel operator before departing, so they know when to arrive and any possible impacts on their journey.
Sir Roger Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Minister has indicated, over the spring bank holiday, there was chaos at Dover and at St Pancras and at the Channel Tunnel because of the failure of the EES. The French authorities were quite simply not prepared or able to implement the facilities properly. Given the predictions based upon bookings for the coming season, which starts in 10 days' time, the authorities are now predicting that it is likely there could be 12-hour delays to passengers and therefore accordingly to freight, which affects our business. That is simply not acceptable. Will the Minister now, before it's too late, approach again the French authorities and suggest that a waiver must be put in place before the holiday season starts so that we don't face again the chaos that we faced in May?
I'm grateful for that question, and I want to recognise that it is a shared goal for ourselves, I know for locally affected members of Parliament, and indeed for the French, to make sure we don't see scenes of huge queues. And we know the impact that has on individuals and on businesses. What we have done, and the Honourable Gentleman talks about more efforts, and we will, I can assure him, be doing this on a daily basis, as we already are, both with France and with the Commission, pushed on this fundamental point, because whilst this is a complex scheme, and we're seeing that in its operation, it comes down to a fundamental point, that when you get to peak volumes, and the Honourable Gentleman mentions the volumes that are coming shortly, it fundamentally comes down to a question, Mr Speaker, of a prioritisation of flow or a prioritisation of compliance with the scheme itself. We push very heavily. We will do every day between now and then, I can say that to the right honourable gentleman, to make sure that the French use flexibilities available to prioritise flow. That's what I want, that's what he wants, and I think that's in everybody's interests.
Ruth Cadbury, Chair of the Select Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. The Honourable Member for Herne Bay and Sandwich is quite right to highlight the challenge and the impact on Kent when these queues build up, and of course the impact on those British people trying to get out through Dover and Folkestone and other places as well. I want to ask the Minister a question about what can be done for British holiday makers coming home who have been stuck at airports for hours and hours, missed their flights because the airlines need to get moving because of working time directives. I'm led to understand that fingerprints are required on entry but are not required on exit from the Schengen area. And yet many of these delays are being caused because airports are, in different countries, are seeking the holidaymakers provide fingerprints again, as well as the much easier face recognition. Could the Minister pick this up, please, and tell me what is happening?
I'm grateful to the Chair of that Select Committee for that characteristically thoughtful response, because, of course, a lot of ministerial focus, as you would expect, is around juxtaposed ports. Those are things that happen on UK soils and have an impact in UK communities. Nevertheless, we want our travel makers to have the best possible experience wherever they are. The checks in Schengen countries are a matter for them, but as I said in opening, we are engaging with all countries, not just France, to make sure that a proportionate and sensible use within flexibility is made. And then for our own impact, she will know, as other colleagues will know too, about the changes that we're making with our own e-gates, so that lowering that age, so that when passengers, possibly after having, as she characterised, a difficult journey out, have the smoothest when they're back on UK soil.
Max Wilkinson, Liberal Democrats. But sorry, Matt Vick, Shadow Minister.
Thank you. I thank the honourable member for Herne, Bay and Sandwich for securing this important urgent question. Anyone who has travelled or spoken to those who've tried to use the new European entry-exit system understands why the scale of the challenges over summer are so great. Despite all those problems, it has now been reported that a separate new online system to pre-authorise entry to the EU will be delayed until next year. This is a pitiful response, indicative of the problems facing so many UK travellers. There is nowhere near the urgency needed to address the problems facing the EES as we enter the summer holidays. As the President of Airports Council International Europe recently expressed, politicians should stop pretending that the EES is working just fine. It is not. This delusional attitude among EU colleagues is not acceptable, with the EU telling representatives of the travel industry that a full suspension of the system is not needed and not possible. The government must stand behind the interests of British travellers. For instance, there appears to be a ridiculous situation in which a facility built in Dover cannot be activated until the technology for the kiosks, which is the responsibility of the French authorities, is working. My honourable friend, the Chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, is right. It is time to apply maximum pressure before chaos arrives at the border at Dover. I hope the Minister can detail what conversations they've had, what pressure they will apply. Have they asked for a temporary suspension, relaxation or phased use of EES checks at periods of exceptional congestion? And given the increased traffic, what have the government done to strengthen plans in case queues spill out of Dover or Folkestone? It is in all our interest to ensure people can get through border checks quickly, so it's time to ensure that that happens.
Minister.
I'm grateful to the Shadow Minister for his questions there. I share his point, and he heard me say in opening about the importance and the impact that pre-authorisation can have. We want that to become the norm. We are, as I said, engaging with Member States to encourage them to take that use of the EES app up. He asked about intent in our colleagues in the European Union, whether in the Commission or in Member States. I have to say I don't detect a lack of intent. They are very keen to engage with us. We engage with them very frequently indeed. They want this system to work. It's very important that it does. And it is worth saying, Mr Speaker, it is a good thing that our neighbour wants really good security arrangements. We benefit from that too. But I do think we have we certainly have that level of engagement. He talks about full suspension. I have to say, as I said to the right honourable member, the chair of the Select Committee yesterday in Select Committee proceedings, I would not set that as the goal and the aspiration because I don't believe that's deliverable. What we delivered in May, what we will seek to do here, is that when we get to peak times and the system is clearly not managing flow appropriately, having the right flexibilities in place on the ground for PAF staff to make those changes that prioritise flow. That's my priority. He talks about the facility. Well, I would gently say it isn't going to be able to be used until the technology that it's used and based on works. Of course it's not. We want that to be the case as soon as possible. That is not a business for us. We have made the money available so that the infrastructure is there. It is there. We have delivered on that element, but the technology is still clearly taking time to stand up. He talks about pressure. Well, the engagement we have is at all levels of government. Yes, in the Home Office, and the Home Secretary is engaged with her counterpart and with the Commission, as has DFT colleagues, DFT Secretary of State, as has the Minister for the Cabinet Office. We are raising these on a daily basis. And then on the point on contingencies, I would take this opportunity, Mr Speaker, to say what a good job that the Kent and Medway Resilience Forum have done on this. I am a big Resilience Forum enthusiast. Those are local people making direct local changes to improve their community when under pressure. There is Operation TAP, there is Operation Brock. Those arrangements are in place and we will work with them so they can make the best operational decisions they can along the way.
Mr Speaker, with the Home Affairs Select Committee, I visited the...
Okay, right. Sorry, we're going to end this a little bit early this week due to the heat, etc. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I'm trying to get out the actual video of Prime Minister's question time at the moment. That'll be up shortly. And we'll be back shortly. I'll get some videos uploaded, etc. Keep an eye out. If they're a premiere, you can join in the chat while it's going live. There is one I've got coming up. Thank you very much, Shaz, and everybody else for joining. It's getting hot in here. All right. What else was there? Make sure you subscribe because there's new things coming here with YouTube. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Stay cool, everyone. Stay hydrated. And keep an eye out for the videos. Give them a little watch. Give them a little like. Be much appreciated. Thank you all. We'll see you again soon.